Okay, I think we'll make a start. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our DG HV EHV ICE update. Presentation today should take roughly between an hour and a half. We're going to update you on our ICE commitments that we made to our HV EHV customers, progress update and overview of where we're up to, and sort of walk you through what's next to come, really. Just a reminder, if you can stay on mute for the session, we will pause for some questions, and there is an interactive piece where we'll be asking you to comment. Likewise, if you can keep your cameras off, please, we would appreciate that, just to help with the bandwidth. And the session will be recorded, so it'll be available along with the slides at in the next couple of days. So if I just move on to the next slide. So joining myself today, we have 3 other presenters. So Hannah Sharrett, Victoria Brown and Keith Evans, along with 2 of our senior leaders, Stefan Jones and Brian Hoy. So we will be the panel available if you have any questions. And then the next slide, please, Hannah. So in terms of ICE, the objective of today is, like I mentioned, just to give you an update and an overview of our commitments that we made to you this year. So we're going to go straight into the first commitment, which is transmission constraints, and Victoria Brown is going to take us through this. Just a reminder of the commitment that we made in terms of transmission constraints. We committed to review recent improvements to communications and to survey our stakeholders and highlight any recent changes and seek feedback to identify any further improvements. So I will pass you over to Victoria now. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. So as Amy mentioned, I'm Victoria, I'm the Grid and Primary Programme Manager. So I think I've spoken to quite a few of you on the call previously. So I'll walk you through this afternoon the commitments we've made for transmission constraints, and I'll also go through an update to the commitments we've made for interactivity, and also a very small G99 update. So if you could just go to the next slide, please, Hannah. Might need to press the arrow a couple of times. So in September, we surveyed all our customers to ask whether they were aware of the changes that we've made to the transmission information we're publishing on our website. So of the responses that we had back, 60% of those respondents were aware of the changes. Of those respondents, 100% of those found that the information was clear and useful, which is fantastic. But unfortunately, 40% of the respondents weren't aware of the information. So what we will do probably in the new year is send out a mail shot to all the relevant customers just to publicise this information a little bit further. So those of you that haven't seen it previously will be able to have access. We also had some additional feedback that timescales for National Grid reinforcement would be really valuable. And also people wanted as much pre-acceptance information about potential National Grid works as much as they could get. So where we're aware of existing National Grid works, so particularly at the moment there's 2 kind of major areas up in Cumbria and also at Heysham, where we're aware that there is significant National Grid work that's required. We will make you aware of that as soon as you apply. So as part of the triage work that we'll do when you make your application, we'll let you know if there's any major grid constraints in the area. Likewise, if you're in an area where we aren't aware what National Grid work is going to be required, but Grid have told us there's very little headroom and you'd need to go into the modification application process, we'll also make you aware of that as soon as possible, so that you know kind of prior to accepting any offer whether it's likely that you're going to need to go into that mod app process. Also what we've done is we've added some more information about transmission and transmission constraints to the Generation webpage on our website. So hopefully just to give that a bit more visibility to various customers rather than it being just kind of tucked away with the heat map. So you could go to the next one, thank you. So also, as I mentioned, I wanted to give an update on interactivity. So the commitment we made for interactivity was that we would review our interactivity processes, we'd adopt best practice identified through the Open Networks project, and that we would keep you informed of our progress as we make it. So as part of the changes that have come about as the Open Networks kind of working group, there has been some significant changes from our old interactivity process to our new one. So just a refresher for those of you that aren't really aware, our old interactivity process, it was based on a moratorium period of 10 working days. So where we had a new interactive connection offer, this was added to that interactivity queue, and in order to try and be fair and balanced to kind of all applicants, what we would do is we would extend that moratorium period by another 10 days. However, this did lead to some frustration as it did elongate the process. And if you were in an area where there was significant interactivity, I think some of you on the call will probably remember the queues of 20+ applicants that we had up in Cumbria a few years ago. If you had been one of the people that was at the start of that queue and it's being continually extended and extended, it could mean that acceptance was put off by quite a number of weeks, and it's obviously a very frustrating process for you to be involved in. And that was kind of the feedback that we were getting from that primarily, was that it was just really frustrating for you all to be involved with. Thanks. So as part of that change, and again in line with the ENA Open Networks project, the new process is going to use unconditional and conditional offers. So the slide after this will go into a bit more detail about what those will look like. You'll also start to receive something called early warning notices. So these are a new addition to the interactivity process, and they are designed to make you aware of potential interactivity as soon as possible. So depending on kind of the area that your application's in, we may be able to get these out to you, pretty soon after you apply. But in other areas, it might be necessary to wait for any network analysis to come back before we can make you aware of that information. So it will vary on a project by project basis when you receive this notice. But we will do our best to get it out to you as soon as possible. And you'll all be very pleased to know that there is no moratorium period in this new process. So it's now changed to an acceptance/validity period of 20 working days per applicant. So when your offer becomes interactive, it will be issued with a 20 working day validity period, and you will have that period in which to make an acceptance. And at the end of that period, your application will expire. So obviously this will stop the kind of the continual extensions that I mentioned previously. However, because of this, conditional offers won't be required to make payment of their acceptance fee until we declare their acceptance as valid. Once we've declared that acceptance is valid, you'll get 10 working days to make payment of that. So I think, again, that will be quite a welcome addition for people that aren't at the start of the interactivity queue. So what are unconditional and conditional offers? Unconditional offers, they are issued to applicants where there's no other affected parties ahead of them in the queue. So the unconditional applicant will be given 20 working days in which to accept their offer. And as I mentioned before, at the end of that period, that offer will then expire. Because there are no other affected parties ahead of those people who are unconditional, in order to have a successful acceptance, they need to submit their signed acceptance form, and also they need to make payment of the acceptance fee. Whereas with conditional offers, these are issued to applicants when there's one or more other affected parties ahead of them in the queue. So because of that, they're dependent on those earlier offers not being accepted. So if you are a conditional applicant and the unconditional applicant ahead of you accepts, that would mean that your offer is then withdrawn, and you'd no longer be able to accept that. So as with the unconditional offers, you'll have 20 working days with which to accept your offer, and again at the end of that period your offer will expire. And as I mentioned previously, the conditional applicants will have to wait till all offers ahead of them have expired before we can declare them as successful. So we won't be asking for payment of the fee until you've been successful. Next slide, please, Hannah. Thank you. So in order to kind of give you a bit more information about this, we have published kind of the new process and also some common scenarios on our website. We also recently conducted an interactivity webinar, and that webinar has been recorded and will also be available on the website for you to view if you follow that link. And Amy will issue these slides out to you all at the end of the presentation. If you happen to have any other queries about interactivity that aren't addressed with the information we've published on the website, then we've set up an interactivity mailbox, which is interactivity@enwl.co.uk. So you can get in touch with us with any queries that you do have relating to that. And that process has actually now been live for a day. So it went live yesterday. So any connection offers that are being sent out from now on that kind of trigger a new interactivity queue or revive a lapsed interactivity queue, they'll be issued on the new process. So if you do have any queries about those, please do get in touch with us. And then just a brief update for you on engineering recommendations G98 and G99. You'll all be very pleased to know this is not very long. So we made a commitment to communicate to our stakeholders regarding G99 requirements, which applies to the connection of generation equipment. We will also share best practice and information on the latest national developments to support customers through a dedicated G98 and G99 workshop, and we'll communicate updates on this throughout the year. So in October of this year, some connection guides were updated to ensure that they were an accurate reflection of the G98, G99 processes and the requirements that you'll have for each of those. So with all G98 and G99 applications, dependent on the size of those, there will be different kind of requirements that you need to submit to make sure that your generation installation is G99 or G98 compliant. So those detailed revisions can be found on the link there. So it's just to give you some greater guidance on making sure that you're submitting everything that you need to for any applications. Also, as part of the ICE commitment, we're going to deliver a G99 workshop in January 2021. So if you keep your eyes peeled on the website, we'll publish some information about when that's going to be held as soon as possible. And you'll all be able to sign up if that's something that interests you. So that's the end of the updates that I've got for you today. So I'm going to hand over now for the transition to DSO. Thanks.
Thanks, Victoria. Do we have any questions at this point? I know that we've had a question in the chat about the slides being made available, and as Victoria mentioned, we will issue them after the session. If it is in regards to the interactivity piece, the webinar is now available on our website, but as I say, we'll issue the slides to you, and the links are available on there. So I will now pass you over to Keith Evans, who is going to take us through our transition to DSO and an update in terms of what's been happening with that functionality. Thank you.
Hi there, my name's Keith Evans. I'm the DSO Transition and Smart Grid Engineering Manager for Electricity Northwest. So I'm going to be taking you through what our transition to distribution system operation is. Traditionally, the electricity network was designed from a top-down perspective, with large generators being at the top, and the power flowing down to domestic users. Now, going forwards, we all know that we've now got distribution generators, we've got electricity storage, we've got EVs, we've got heat pumps, we've got demand-side response. So the flow of energy is a bit more complicated than it ever used to be. So the transition to DSO is the focus on how we go about facilitating this transition, allowing the connection of more low carbon technologies, and from that we're expecting to see electricity demand set to double by 2050. So obviously, without controlling that in a smart way, the network won't work correctly. So we're trying to produce the network ready for the 21st century living. So what are the benefits of DSO transition? So improved customer experience. So we've been sharing best practice with the other network operators, the electricity system operators and the transmission operators, to provide the best customer service across the UK, sharing best practice. We're expecting to see efficiency savings by utilising the network more efficiently. We are going to do more whole system investment. So not just looking at our own networks, but also speaking to other network operators like National Grid and the gas networks to see where we can coordinate on whole system investment capabilities. Facilitating the low carbon economy, increased flexibility on the network, so allowing us to bring on demand and generation so that we can do energy trading and energy balancing, and increasing productivity by having increased modelling tools, more automation and more self-service for our customers. So what have we done so far? So far we have carried out a consultation on 3 documents relating to our DSO strategy, our analysis of the DSO functions, and our grid digitalisation and data strategies. We launched those in May 2020, and the feedback that we got back from them was broadly supportive of our strategies, ready for ED2, which is our next price control review. We're still open to more feedback if anyone has any, and you can find a link to the documents on the page. We also annually publish our distribution electricity scenarios. So these allow stakeholders to see what we're predicting, the potential scenarios for uptake of low carbon technologies, demand increases, where we're expecting to see growth in the network, which helps us inform our stakeholders where investment may be required in the future, but also where there may be capacity available in the future for their needs. We also publish our flexible services requirements. So these are where we ask our customers to provide a service to us, which we will pay for. We've just launched our biggest tender so far. So I would encourage anyone who's interested in that to have a look on our website and to put in their expression of interest if they're interested in providing services to the network. We produce a range of heat mapping tools, and hopefully most of you are aware of these so far. We offer these in both graphical and tabular formats, and these are regularly updated to include all new connections onto the network. We've also produced the carbon plan. So that was produced in 2019, and it maps out how we as a company intend to reduce our own emissions, but also how we intend to lead the Northwest to zero carbon going forwards. And we're also members of the Open Networks project. So this is a UK-wide collaboration project involving all the network operators, the system operators, the Ofgem, who are our regulator, and BEIS. And part of this is looking at how we standardise the transition to DSO, but also looking at other things. So you've already heard about the standardisation of the interactivity processes. We've developed joint future electricity scenario methodologies. We've standardised our flexible services agreements and product naming. We've produced heat mapping good practice guides. And we've also created the DSO roadmap for the UK transition to DSO. So that allows everyone to see where we as network operators are planning to transition, at what speed, and within next year's release of that, we will be publishing disaggregated data. At the moment, all the DNO's activities are aggregated together, but next year we will be publishing them disaggregated to give a better granularity of detail for our stakeholders. So the highlights of our current work. We've developed operational IT systems for managing power flow. We are establishing the neutral market trading system to facilitate trading of flexible services in near real time. That will allow people to both trade with us, but also to trade with each other, called secondary trading. We're going to be establishing a DSO control desk within our existing control centre, which will allow us to do that energy balancing and manage our DSO activities. We're improving the quality and quantity of the data that we're offering to our stakeholders so they have a better informed decision-making capability. We're updating our policies and procedures to allow for all the standardisation. We're offering a better range of flexible connections options. We are improving our forecasting techniques, and we're going to continue to publish heat maps, our distribution future electricity scenarios, and our flexible services requests. We are going to be developing more modelling tools and techniques and automating some of our connections processes. And we're also going to be working to reduce Electricity North West's carbon emissions and encouraging others to do the same. So the next topic I'm going to talk about is the Accelerated Loss of Mains Change Programme. So again, this is a UK industry project, and the purpose of the project is that in September 2022, there will be a requirement for all generators to have removed vector shift from their generators, and also to have updated their rock-off settings to the 1 Hertz 500 milliseconds time period. After September 2022, there is likely to be an enforcement programme. So if you're not compliant by then there's the potential that we may ask that generators are switched off. And this applies to anyone who was connected under the terms of G59 and connected before February 2018. So currently there's the industry standard project, which is funding the changes in protection settings. So anyone who is connected under G59 and has non-compliant settings can apply for funding to the programme, and then those changes can potentially be funded through the project to make sure they're compliant. We're trying to encourage people to apply sooner rather than later, because there's only a limited amount of funding, and also the sooner you make the changes, the better it is overall for the network, and therefore it is being incentivised that changes are made sooner rather than later, and there are a range of different fast tracking options, but also going forwards there may be a reduction in the payments available to customers. So far we've actually gone through 5 application windows so far, and we're currently running about 88% of the generators that we know are connected to the network that still need to make these changes. And the amount of funding available is quite significant. It's £4,000 for a relay change and £1,500 for a change in protection settings. So it's not a small amount of money. So I would encourage anyone who knows that they've got a generator that would be non-compliant to engage with the programme sooner rather than later, and to apply for the funding. We're currently on Windows 6. Windows 6 opened in November. It will run for 3 calendar months, and you can see the details on screen of how to connect and how to get more information from the programme. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Thanks, Keith. So just touching from me on what Keith covered in terms of flexible connections, our commitment to you this year was that we will further clarify our range of flexible connections, and we'll continue to review the opportunities to further develop and implement flexible connections options and keep you updated of our progress. So in terms of what we currently offer the following types of flexible connection. You may or may not be aware of this. The information is available on our website. So there's currently two, system normal connection and export limited connection. For further details on those two connections, you can either have a conversation with your planner or please get in touch with us, and we can certainly arrange for a surgery session in terms of your site. And then what is next to come? We're in the process of implementing our new network management system, also known as NMS, which will allow us to offer the following additional flexible connection options. Timed connections, import limited connections, and active network management. So for further information on what's to come in terms of the flexible connections options, the link that is showing on your screen now will take you through to the flexible connections webpage. And just to reiterate, if you do have a sort of site that you would like to discuss, please get in touch with one of our designers, and they'll be more than happy to have that discussion with you. The slides will be made available with the link to the webpage following the session. And we do have some people available on the call should you have any questions that you'd like to address offline. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to highlight, if you do have questions or any comments, you are able to raise your hand using the hand icon at the top of the screen. So please feel free to jump in with any comments. I'm Hannah Sharrett. I'm here and I'm going to be talking through our flexible services, which is a commitment that we set out this year, where we would continuously improve how we provide information and publish our requirements for flexible services. We also committed to promote asset registration and also to publish and promote our requirements. And the last aspect was to explore further options for flexible services. So I wanted to give you an update today where we're at. So what have we done so far? As you can see, we've been offering flexible services since 2018 and have issued a number of tenders and requirements that have been published. This year, we followed our standard 6-month requirement publications. We did one in spring 2020 and have just recently, as Keith mentioned, launched our autumn requirements, which there was a webinar I think about a week ago, which is available again on our website. So as part of our continuous improvement, our current tender is our largest ever, up to 122 megawatts of flexibility across various regions over the next couple of years. As part of the continuous improvement, we've added an interactive map that you can see there, where you can actually have a look at where the sites are and where the locations we're looking for flexible options. In addition, we've also launched asset registrations. So this is to enhance our process. We've collaborated with a third party, Piccolo Flex, and launched their platform for registering and pre-qualifying your assets as part of our latest flexible requirements promotion. So what does this give you? This incorporates consistency across the DNOs, both in the approach and in the terminology used. That was part of the feedback that I think a number of DNOs were getting, in that you would have different terminology used in one geographical area with one DNO that you would with a different DNO in a different part of the country. So nationally, the DNOs have got together and come up with a consistent approach and consistent set of terminology, and we've incorporated that in our latest promotion. The asset registration and the beauty of the Pickler Flex platform is that it gives you visibility of our requirements, and that includes terms and conditions, technical specifications, gives you half-hourly requirements, and it also allows you to check whether your postcode is within the area that we're looking for. The third benefit of pre-qualification is that we can notify you that and confirm that your asset is eligible for the bid prior to actually doing the bidding stage. So you don't end up wasting time and effort in terms of putting a bid in if you already know that your asset isn't suitable for the particular requirements we have. So the other aspect that we have in our commitment is that we will explore further options for our flexible services, and we're currently preparing our business plans for 2023 onwards, and as part of that we're looking to collate our potential requirements. So what are we likely to need in terms of flexible services from 2023 onwards? So on the next slide, you will see an infographic detailing the kinds of areas that we'll be looking to offer over the coming years, and to help us to improve our flexible services and make sure that we are offering services that are useful and beneficial to you. We would really appreciate your thoughts and to help us understand how we can better support you. So this slide just gives you an idea in terms of what we're looking to offer, as I say, from 2023 onwards. So we're looking at potentially over 200 megawatts required over 5 years in various different sites. And on the slide there, you've got a link to find out more information if you're interested. And we also have a survey on the link at the bottom here, if you're able to give us some feedback in terms of what would be useful and what wouldn't. Okay. Any questions on flexible services? Okay, so one of our commitments, which is obviously something we include or consider each year, is to look at the continuous improvements of the service that we provide. And the specific wording is, we will review our processes as part of our continuous improvement to customer service, and we will engage with stakeholders to review and improve our processes where appropriate. So we have, just to set the scene, the slide here shows the full customer journey from pre-application right through to delivery and energisation. So obviously we have committed to engage with our stakeholders, and today is a perfect opportunity for you to give us your thoughts and some feedback on potential areas that we can enhance our process. So we have had a little bit of a technical issue in that the quick poll that we were going to put on the chat is not working. So I have, if you can have a look on the chat, there is a website. If you could click on the link on the website, it will ask you for a code. If you can enter that code, and there will be one question there where we're going to ask you to rate our service at each point in the customer journey. So, do we provide a good service, or do we not provide a good service on each stage of the customer journey? So if you could click on that link and put in the code and answer the question, I will change the presentation just to show you this screen. Okay. Can someone just confirm that you can see the screen here?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. I normally get a red line around it. I can't see that. Okay, I'll just give a minute more. So far we're getting really good feedback. One of the things I would like, whilst we're waiting for people to complete this, be ready to answer any questions and give us a little bit more, because what I'm going to be doing is asking people to give some reasons why we've been rated in such a way. So, for example, we've got a rating in our application. It'd be good to hear what is, you know, what is it that we're doing that's good, and can we look to incorporate that in other parts of the process. If there are any anyone rating us as not so good, would really be interested to hear as to where that's fallen over and how we can improve. So we've just had 3. Hopefully we've got a few more coming through. Please shout if you're unable to access it.
And it was all going so well. That's a bit more realistic, yeah.
It's actually more useful, I think. Okay, so we've had 5 responses. Are we going to get any more? Don't be shy. Okay, so please continue to fill it out if you haven't, but I'll start just going through this, and as I say, I will be asking for a little bit of detail behind your answers. So if you can when I come to you, if you can unmute and talk to us, that'd be fabulous. So if we have a look at the pre-application, we've got generally quite high, so that looks to be working quite well. Does anyone want to comment on particularly why you've scored that quite high, or for the ones who perhaps scored it, I guess that's about a 7 or an 8, what we could do to move it closer to the 10? Either raise your hand or unmute yourself. And I think it'd be really useful to kind of hear the reasons behind it.
Maybe, Hannah, but maybe we've got a couple there that we're not doing so well on, so maybe it might be better focusing on the post-acceptance and delivery to get to understand where.
Yeah.
The first 3 we're not doing too badly on, but we've clearly got some interesting feedback on the post-acceptance and delivery.
Yeah, I was going to go through each stage.
I know, but
okay,
yeah.
We'll pick up on
prioritise the time. Just that's what I was thinking.
So we've got somebody in the post-acceptance and the delivery phase. Scoring is really quite poorly. Can somebody let us know what's gone wrong there?
I mean, it's fine if people don't want to share it publicly on a call, but it'd be very helpful just people can actually just send us an email just so we can actually understand. Because
hi, I'm willing to have a chat about it. Jonathan Harper at Power On.
Thank you, Jonathan.
I scored the middle point on post acceptance. I scored it because we have trouble with connection agreements. So the design approval process is okay. It's the connection, getting the agreements in place is an absolute nightmare, to be honest. We don't really get much feedback. In fact, I can confirm that we've only had 1 job in the whole time that I've been at Power On, 11 years, where we've had the full signed agreements from both sides. So we've signed all of them, but we've only ever had 1 back from you guys.
Okay.
And that's the reason. The rest of it is okay. I scored fairly highly on the rest of the points.
Okay.
That's really helpful. I mean, one of the things we have introduced, but only recently in the last couple of months, is actually some improved tracking on our getting our BCAs back. So it'll be interesting to see whether that starts to actually improve it up, because yeah, it's something that we identified this year as a bit of a kind of a gap, and something we weren't particularly proactive on. Sometimes there was something missing and we'd send it back to the ICP or IDNO, but we didn't follow up on it. So now we're actually tracking that. So we're going to start getting some of that sort of performance data on that. But that might be something to be useful that we can do, is just reconcile those. If we've got your details, we can check if there's any still that you're missing on, because we've been catching up with the backlog of ones we had to just try and say improve our turnaround on getting those out the door.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. Anyone to comment on the delivery? We know, as Brian says, if you're not comfortable in voicing it here today, we would really appreciate to understand kind of where things are going wrong, and see, so we've got a chance to make some changes and make improvements, or address anything specific. So for example, Jonathan, with your connection agreements, we can have a look at those. So anyone want to comment before I move back to the slides? Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, but if people will drop us an email, because there's clearly some disquiet there, which is fine. We're asking the question because we want to know, because we want to try and improve it. But if you don't give us the sort of the context behind that, then it's very difficult for us to know what to do, and we don't want to go off. That was in part why Hannah was asking about even the ones we didn't, the scores were quite good on, because we want to know so we don't actually inadvertently stop doing something that you appreciate. So that was why we were just trying to collaborate that feedback. But certainly those ones where we've got some that are scoring us at ones would be really interested to know, so we can actually understand if that was a specific on one specific project or something more generic, because that's what we're after, is trying to make improvements and make life easier for you, because that makes life easier for us. So as I say, if you can drop us an email and have a bilateral conversation separately, that'd be really good.
Okay. So you should be seeing the customer journey slide again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, well, thank you ever so much for that. I did have 2 extra questions. So is there anything else that people want to provide feedback, and what would be the most useful improvement that we could possibly make to our processes? I won't ask anyone to jump in, but as I say, if you do want to raise your hand, then we will certainly take your comments. Otherwise, if you could either get in touch afterwards, we will be staying on for a few minutes at the end of the webinar, so we can do it offline. In terms of what we've done so far, we have surveyed, we sent a survey out to our stakeholders asking this this kind of question, and some of the feedback that we've had, as you can see on the slide, relates to the mod applications and the national grid reinforcements, which Victoria alluded to earlier in her presentation. There was also some comments in terms of being able to use the heat map tool and potential developments on that. So all of those are more around the information that we provide as part of that process. So certainly we'll be looking at those, and the first 2, as Victoria's mentioned, are already being incorporated into the process. And the last element that's come out is about contact. So making sure that at each stage of the customer journey that you know who to contact. So as soon as possible, who the planner is that's going to be dealing with your application, and in the delivery phase, who the project manager will be. So just making sure that you know exactly who to talk to throughout the customer journey. But obviously anything that comes through as a result of today we'll also look at, and Jonathan, thank you for your comments. We'll certainly look at those as well. Okay, so moving on to our next commitment is digital strategy. So the digital strategy is something that all DNOs are working on. It's being part driven by Ofgem, and it's about how and when we share our data, and making sure that we are in compliance with all the regulations, and we're able to give you quality information at the right time and in the right method. So the commitment that we included in our work plan for 2020 to 2021 is we will keep our stakeholders informed on our digital strategy. We will present an overview of our digital strategy at a workshop. We will provide an update on progress via webinar and/or communications, and we will signpost opportunities for stakeholders to get involved in national groups and events. So where are we up to? The overview of our digital strategy is going to take place in our Q4 workshop. So that is due to happen in the next few months. In terms of keeping you updated on our progress, we had a webinar in July where we went through in detail what was being included in the strategy at that stage. We've provided updates in newsletters and obviously today, and we will be sending out a notification when we publish the second part of our strategy, which is the action plan, which I'll explain in the next slide or two. In terms of signposting opportunities, the main opportunity that's been available this year is to get involved with a consultation around the digital strategy. And that was promoted via an email to everyone who signed up to our distribution list. So the timeline around the digital strategy, as you can see, we've been working on this since 2019. In December, we published our initial view of what the digital strategy would look like and opened that for consultation. In the summer of 2020, that consultation was running and finished in September of this year. We've been looking at the feedback received and have recently, or will be publishing, the latest updated digital strategy, incorporating some of the feedback we've obtained in the consultation. And that'll be happening this month. And then in spring of 2021, there is an ongoing national group agreeing the format of the digital strategy action plan. That's still to be finalised, and we're expecting that to come through in spring. And as soon as we have that, we will obviously provide our presentation to all stakeholders to give you the details of what's included in the digital strategy and what's included, or what our plan is to implement that. Okay, so the consultation asked 7 questions about our original digital strategy. I'm not going to go through each of those questions today, but you can get a flavour of the questions that were being asked. And in terms of the response that we got from the consultation, we were able to get 76 stakeholders coming back to us, and this ranged from sort of larger corporations through to your individual customers. We also used a group called Voice of the Customer, which are a group of generally domestic customers who registered to give us feedback, and their primary view is on our business plan for 2023 to 2028, but they're also providing information in terms of some of the consultations that we have open. And of course, we've been to Ofgem and our suppliers. So Ofgem's feedback, a couple of highlights are shown there in terms of the video that we provided and the roadmap that's now been included in our action plan, which will detail how we're going to implement the digital strategy. And you can see some of the key elements that have come back is to make sure that it's clear, it's accurate and relevant information, and some examples. The kind of technology that we need to be considering as part of our digital strategy, and the method of sharing that information with our customers and our stakeholders. So you can see email was, again, the main method with the group that responded. So here's again just a flavour for the kinds of comments that were received in that consultation, and I'm sure you can all relate to some of the comments here. So how have we responded? In terms of the strategy, as I say, we've been reviewing and updating the strategy since the consultation, and that is due to be published this month. And some of the aspects we've done, you can see there in terms of producing a strategy on a page, making sure we're considering accessibility, and making sure that the strategy doesn't include a detail that's not of use or information or of interest to our stakeholders. So the key point is the next steps. We will be publishing the digital strategy action plan following agreement of the format across the different DNOs and with Ofgem. And we will be delivering a more in-depth overview of what's included in the digital strategy. So the exact information that we're looking to include and the methods that we're thinking to make that accessible for our stakeholders. Okay, I shall now hand over to Amy. I guess before I do that, is there any questions?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so in terms of our network asset viewer, also known as NAV, you may or may not be familiar with the system. Hopefully you are. We released the system back in the summer, but I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what that looks like. So our commitment to you was that we would provide you with a system that was accurate of our network, and so therefore we published the new interactive map-based asset viewer to identify our assets and search an area of interest to assist you with your projects. And we've also released now the download geo package file. So if you did originally have access to our NAV system, you are now also able to request the download option. So I know that there's a bit of a quiet bunch today, but is there anybody that would like to give any feedback or, let us know what you think in terms of our NAV system? And if you've had chance to download the geo package file, now would if you would like to share with us.
Hi Amy, it's Lucy here, Road Knight Taylor. Hi there. We haven't actually. We have our own online sort of GIS mapping software. We have tried to import data before. We've managed to get parts of the network, but not all of it. And it's really hard to find anybody at Northern Power Grid that will engage with us on how we can do that. And how we can get that information onto a platform that we can use. I know it's probably not a usual request, but we have sort of tried, got halfway there and never really managed to get the thing working properly. So it'd be really good to speak to somebody at Electricity North West about that. We've had various people who've sort of tried to do it by email, but never give out their phone numbers. So it's quite difficult to get very much further with it. So that would be something I'd quite like to follow up separately if we could. That'd be great. Thank you.
You pick that up with you after the session, Lucy.
Okay, great.
And so that you do get that support.
Lovely. Thanks very much.
No problem. Is there anybody else that would like to comment? Any feedback on our NAV system? If you do want to provide some feedback offline, then please, feel free to drop me an email at our ICE mailbox, which is ice@nwl.co.uk, or alternatively we can discuss it at the end of the session. But we are interested on hearing your thoughts on the system, and if, like Lucy, you've had some difficulties, please, feel free to contact us, and we can certainly support you through that process. So in terms of our time to quote, you can just move on to the next slide, please, Hannah. Okay, so we committed to time to quote timescales for HV and EHV quotations on an average of 57 working days in comparison to the guaranteed standard of 65 working days. In terms of an update as to where we're at, as you can see with our HV quotations, we are outperforming that target, working at 34 working days. And same for EHV, 56 working days for those quotations. So doing very well with our time to quote. And just a very sort of brief overview in terms of the other commitments on our HV, EHV work plan and our business as usual. For our significant code review, as of yet, we haven't heard anything from Ofgem in terms of when we will be delivering an update on the significant code review. We hope to have received some sort of timetable before Christmas, but we will share that information with you as soon as that's available. When we know, you will know, so just keep your eye out for those updates. Network information is on track, and we have we're working towards looking at our heat map tool, and in terms of outage communication, we've recently surveyed some of our larger generator customers in terms of our planned communications, and we are currently reviewing that feedback in order to look at some next steps. And then just a final note from me in terms of the work plan. It's been a little bit different this year. Usually we would host some face-to-face events. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, that has meant that we've not been able to do that. I do think it's important for us to mention we've had a slight technical issue in terms of the registration forms on our website for our events that's been highlighted over the last week or so. So therefore, I apologise that you may have received this invite slightly later than expected, because we weren't aware that there was as many of you that were interested in the event. So we're working towards resolving that at the moment, but we have put some temporary measures in place to mitigate the risk of anybody missing out on one of our events. And as promised, we will issue our sort of quarterly newsletters. If you are interested in keeping in touch with us and finding out what we've been up to, newsletters are a great way to find out updates and what the team's been up to, and an overview on our progress so far. So if you would like to sign up for our newsletters, you are able to do so through our distribution list, which you can complete on our website, and I will certainly provide you with the link for that when I issue the slides out. And then just before I sort of start to wrap up, I'm aware that we've gone through an awful lot of information today with an overview of our commitments that we made to you at the beginning of the year. And I know that we've got a quiet bunch on today, but would anybody have any questions? The slides will be made available, so you'll have all of the links should you want to access the website or any of the information that we've presented today. We've also recorded the session, so that will be available on our website, and I will certainly send the link out to you in the next couple of days. But any questions for our panel that we have today? So Victoria Brown, Grid and Primary Programme Manager, Keith Evans, who is our Smart Grid and DSO Transition Manager, Stefan Jones, Infrastructure Solutions Manager, or Brian Hoy, who is Head of Market Regulation. Just whilst you're thinking about that, we will put a short poll in the chat. Really do appreciate your feedback. Just sort of gives us an idea as to whether we're on track with your expectations from these sessions. So we would really appreciate just 30 seconds just to complete that feedback form for us. And any questions that you have available, we will be available now for a few minutes after the call, should you want to discuss anything offline. Alternatively, you can drop me an email at ice@emwl.co.uk.
So I have a question, I guess, for our attendees. We've run through our work plan for this year and given an update in terms of where we're up to with each of our commitments. Is there anything within that update that you would either want to see more of or less of? Anything that gives you cause for concern, or anything you'd like to highlight as we've delivered really well? So this is an opportunity to shout and say this is what we would like, or our thoughts on what we've done so far this year, as well as being able to ask any questions on any of the topics raised. Okay. Looks like we're not getting any questions. So we'll move on to the wrap up and close.
So thank you for your participation today. Hope you found this webinar to be useful. The recording, as I say, will be available in the next couple of days. Your feedback is key to us, so please, if you do have the time to complete the short poll, we'd really appreciate that. And keep your eye on our events page on our website for any upcoming events. And if we don't speak to you before the end of the year, we hope on behalf of all of us at Electricity North West that you have a great Christmas, and I'm sure we'll be in touch in the new year. Thank you.